women's issue I care most about that probably does not get enough exposure is education for women across the globe. I think it's pretty well documented that when women are educated and have the means to make a living for their families are healthier and their relationships are healthier and their children are healthier.
Sometimes I feel that as a society, we don't appreciate each other enough. I think we tend to take things for granted often, and I think the most valuable thing we have is each other. So caring about each other, helping people when you pass them on the street that are needy, things like that, I think we've become a little bit almost with blinders on. And I think we just need to always be very aware of who and what is out there and what we can do to make everybody's lives better.
If there's one thing I think we could do better, it's allowing more women to feel like they can do whatever it is they want to do. I'm fortunate in that I grew up thinking that and having the education and the opportunity to do it, but there is a huge amount of women in this country who don't have that opportunity. And when you think of the intellect and the economic power and what could be unleashed if those women all had the same opportunity that I did, it would be game-changing.
I would say that we don't do enough of empathizing with other people. I think a lot of the time we spend so much time worrying about ourselves and sort of in our own heads and in our own lives that we don't take the time to really listen to that other person and really empathize with where they're coming from. I think if we could have more empathy, we could have a lot less strife, a lot more understanding.
I think currently the issue that keeps me up at night the most as far as women in the world is just the violence and the abuse going on around the world with women being kidnapped and human trafficking and things that are happening on a large scale in other parts of the world.
If I could be a superhero and have any powers I wanted, what I would most want is the power to change hearts and minds and to move people to action.
Fantastic.
The one women's issue that I think is so important and needs to continue to have exposure across the board is the wage gap, especially when it comes to women. Women need to be paid the same that men are paid for the same jobs they do. I think it is something that we can continue and we need to continue to focus on no matter what. We're talking about all sorts of careers, top to bottom, across the board, no matter what it is. The wage gap is certainly something to be aware of, focus on, and fix.
I feel like cities are becoming gated communities where only the wealthy can live, and I feel like we need to make the world a place where everyone can thrive, not just the rich and not just the happy few. So I really believe that we need to think about how to make cities a place for everyone, not just for the happy few who can afford to live in the cities.
I think women have a really big challenge when it comes to how they're presented in the media, because it's too easy to be portrayed as one extreme or the other. Either you're too soft and sweet or you're too tough and harsh. And I feel like women are forced into one of those two categories pretty unfairly.
Probably what I would say is don't be afraid to fail, because failure is all about learning. And if you never try, you're never going to succeed. And a lot of times people don't even try because they think it's just easier not to try versus taking the risk of embarrassment or failure. But failure is all about life. I mean, that's how great inventions have been created. I mean, think about penicillin. It was not originally intended to cure illness. It was for something else. And so you can find 100 different inventions that have been created simply because someone failed in their original attempt of what their objective was and then found greatness in another way.
I do a lot of work with the food bank here in New York City, and there are so many people who are food insecure, and so many children especially. Something like 1 in 5 New York City children is hungry. And you think if women had equal pay and had more job opportunity, would there be, as many children who are going hungry?
If there's one thing that I don't think that we do enough of, it is being joyful and showing gratitude for all the beautiful things that we have, rather than focusing on all the things that we don't have, or the next big project that needs to be completed, or the next big deadline that's coming up.
And I would also tell my 14-year-old self that you're going to have so many different lives in your one life that you don't really have to make a decision and hold on to something. You can be so many things throughout your lifetime.
If there was an issue that isn't very addressed amongst women's rights issues that I think should be more focused on, it would be promoting women and helping them figure out what tools they need to get promotions within large companies and continue to grow, giving them the support to do that.
One of the most important women's issues that I like to talk about is the simple issue of equality. We live in a great world and we've come so far, and there's so many opportunities for men and women alike in all different races. However, there's so much room for improvement.
Just recently I was in Washington, D.C., and I hosted a town hall with 40 people all affected by gun violence. People from Sandy Hook, father who lost his daughter in Roanoke, Virginia, at WDBJ, Aurora, Virginia Tech, and we talk about it a lot, but when you listen to these people and you hear them, and by the way, a third of them own guns and don't want to take guns away, and it's a really controversial issue, but it just gets you thinking, what can be done so there isn't another mass shooting again, whether it's guns or mental health. We have to keep talking about it, because sitting in that room, listening to their stories, there was not a dry eye.
One of the issues that's really close to my heart is just education for women, and actually for anybody, regardless of gender or socioeconomic situation, because I feel like if you have the opportunity to learn and to grow, that really opens all doors. And so having that available to everybody regardless is to me, critical.
I think the thing that we are most frightened to talk about is that women are sexual beings. That still seems to be taboo, and that women can be sexy and powerful and beautiful and powerful, and that we have libidos and we should be satisfied.